Yeah, hold on. No. Hey. Hi everybody, welcome back for another video. If you're like me, you probably use a sling bag to carry your big, beautiful launcher. And we all like power and we like big launchers, and they've been popular for a long time. And if you have one of those, you're probably carrying it in a bag like this of some sort. You know, this is a non-tactical looking, it's a laptop bag. So you want something that's non-discreet, that's non-tactical. It looks like you're a nerd who's carrying his laptop around. And that's what you want to present as. You don't want to look like the guy who is really carrying a firearm or carrying a weapon on you. So you want to look, blend into the crowd. So I do that because I don't own any of the small compact launchers yet. I have not jumped into that yet. I'm still using my Pepperball TCP when I do carry. And I noticed I did a poll recently, and I asked everyone, no matter what launcher you have, I didn't ask about the specific launcher. I said, using your best carry launcher that you carry every day, how do you carry? The majority of the people, as you can see in the poll, the majority of the people said they use a bag for carry. And that strikes me as being truthful and realistic, because that's really the only way that you're going to carry most launchers. Even the ones that are marketed as compact, everybody knows that those are not really compact by firearm standards, and they're hard to carry on body, even though there's a significant percentage of people who did say that they could carry on body, they could appendix carry, or other types of concealed carry. Very few people, the overwhelming minority of people, open carry, and that's for good reason. I never advocate for open carry. It's just too risky. I don't care if it's a less lethal launcher. I certainly would never do it with a firearm, but a less lethal launcher, still, it makes you a target. Now, the real question that I have is, does a bag, even though the majority of the people are using a bag, does this make you a target? Well, the more, like I said, the more non-discreet it looks, the better. But it means that you're carrying something that is of value to you. You've got it on your body. Who knows what it is? If you're traveling, it could be money, could be a passport, could be something like important documents. But if you're, criminals they're not really gonna care. They're just gonna say, well, this is of value to that person. I'm gonna try to take it from them. And like in that scenario, it takes me a few seconds to get something out of a bag that may have a zipper. And of course you could leave it unzipped, and that would make it a little easier and a little faster, but it also makes it much easier for someone to come up behind you, reach around and steal your weapon, and just to put their hand in there. I was just traveling in Europe. We went all over France, and I had a video about it recently, and I was talking about a lot of different things. But one thing I didn't talk about was pickpockets. They're huge in Paris and huge in other parts of France and other parts of Europe, and not so much in the United States. So you go over to Europe and you encounter petty crime, theft, pickpockets. A lot of times the pickpockets are groups of young girls, which will swarm a train station or in a busy packed train or a packed area around a tourist attraction, and they'll be trying to steal stuff, and these are pickpockets. But the same concept applies. If you're carrying something like a bag, a person that has pickpocket skills is going to go for it, and they're going to try to get inside your bag, and you just have to be an extra careful, have an extra layer of preparedness when you carry something like this. Now, concealed is always better. Same thing with your valuables when you're traveling internationally. If you can use one of those belly bands that goes under your shirt that you can store, credit cards and passports and things like that. That's always a good thing to do. But I did see a lot of people in Europe walking around with bags just like this, and I think it's because it is effective. You can keep it in front of you in a crowd. You can cross your arms over it. It's a fairly safe way to carry, and I don't fault anyone for using a bag. But I do want to point out that the best way to be protected and in case you get it into an encounter is not a bag, because you're going to have to use one hand. You're going to have to fight someone off with oftentimes using two hands. You're going to have to get in there and get your weapon out, and it's a lot harder to do those at the same time. I think the overwhelming majority of people who carry firearms and instructors and people who do force-on-force training find that they die less often when you're using appendix carry, because there's so many different ways in which you could be on the ground. You could use your feet. You can still access your weapon from your appendix and pull it up. And so there's so many more ways in which you can access your weapon with one hand in that kind of situation without getting pinned. If someone pins you against the wall and your weapon is here, and you're fighting, you can't access it. So there's many different scenarios where with a bag carry, you won't be able to access your weapon at all. And then there are other times where you can access it, but the amount of time that it takes for you to get it would result in you probably being pummeled pretty bad. Now again, remember, when we're talking less lethal defense and less lethal weapons, we're not talking about life and death situation. I think that's where a lot of people conflate this, and they think, oh, I'm defending my life, and I got to have my less lethal, and it has to be the highest power. Well, the reality is it's not the right tool. That's not what you should be using if you're having to defend your life against someone. And so maybe it's not so urgent with a less lethal. Maybe a bag is perfectly fine. But if it's a firearm, and as a person who has a firearm, appendix is the only way to go, and it's pretty much widely accepted that is a good way to carry. But again, within the community, firearm community, there's lots of debate about that and the safety of carrying appendix. Now, I love the idea of carrying a less lethal launcher that's compact appendix, because the risk there is low of negligent discharge. It could happen. So part of this video is there's plenty of experts out there, and I'm not an expert on EDC carry. I'm a bag carrier, and that's what I'm comfortable with. So convince me. Let me know what you think. Those of you who on the poll said that you appendix carry, let me hear from you. Let me know what type of launcher specifically that you carry. I heard from a few people, and I really appreciate that kind of specific information, because it helps me a lot. There's clearly some great compact launchers, the Grimberg Carry and the Byrna CL, apples and oranges. There's no comparison between the two. They each have, one is great for kinetics and one is great for chemical, and it's obvious which is which. It's really misleading people when they say it hits like a sledgehammer, and people come along and they say it's a game changer. I don't buy it. It's a smaller launcher. It's not that different than some other things that are out there, but it's definitely unique. And so that's about all I'm going to say about that. I didn't even really plan to talk about the CL specifically in this video. But you do need small launchers if you're going to appendix carry or carry on body. I always think on body is better. So if I can ever switch and forego my bag for on body, I would do that. Of course, what launcher should I use? Which launchers do you recommend? I believe that the collective out there of all of you are the best people to say what is the best to use for this or that. I don't think it's for specific YouTubers, ends of one like myself, to say this is what you should use. This is the best. That's not my job, and that shouldn't be no one should have the ego to believe that their opinion should be so much more important than everyone else. So you let me know. Let's have a discussion. For me, it's all about the discussion and the comments and the interaction, because that's why I do this. That's all I'm going to say about this one. I hope that's a good conversation starter. Let's talk about it. Be safe. See you next time.